Usually, when you walk into an art museum or, say, crack open a highly anticipated new novel, you kind of assume you're the one doing the judging.
Right, yeah.
You look at the painting, you read the prose, and you decide if it's brilliant or maybe derivative, deeply meaningful, or just, entirely flawed.
It's a very comfortable position to be in.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
imagine walking into a gallery where that dynamic is just completely inverted. The paintings are perfectly still, perfectly silent, and it's actually you who is on trial. Like the artist
Right.
is sitting there on the wall, evaluating your soul based entirely on the way you react to it.
Oh, it completely flips the script on how we consume culture. I mean, we are incredibly comfortable occupying that seat of the ultimate arbiter of taste. We rate things, we review things, we cancel things.
Uh-huh.
So the idea that the art is actually judging us is, well, it's unnerving. It's a profound threat to the ego of the audience.
It really is. And that deeply unsettling, mesmerizing gallery is where we're spending our time today on this deep dive. Our mission is to decode a single, incredibly dense piece of text that essentially builds that exact philosophical gallery.
Yes, Oscar Wilde's preface to his novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray.
Right, and it reads like rapid-fire poetry. Wilde is just firing off these absolute, almost commandment-like aphorisms one after another, and it culminates in one of the most famously baffling statements in all of literature, which is, all art is quite useless.
Which is, I mean, that's a staggering claim coming from a man who dedicated his entire existence, his public persona, and ultimately his freedom to the creation of art.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that from him.
Not at all. But this preface isn't just a quirky introduction to a Gothic novel. It really operates as the definitive manifesto for the philosophy of aestheticism in the late 19th century.
Okay, setting the ground rules, basically.
Exactly. Wilde is laying down the absolute laws for why art shouldn't teach us anything, shouldn't preach a moral sermon, and, exists entirely for its own beauty.
So to even wrap our heads around why art should be useless, we really have to look at how Wilde redefines the people involved in the whole ecosystem of art.
The creators and the consumers.
Right. You have the artist who creates it, and you have the critic who judges it. And in his very first lines, Wilde drops a hammer on our more modern expectations of what an artist actually owes us.
Yeah.
He says, the artist is the creator of beautiful things.
Simple enough.
Simple enough, yeah. But then he says, to reveal art and conceal the artist is art's aim.
And that idea to conceal the artist is a deeply radical concept, especially, when you hold it up against how we treat creators today.
Oh, we demand the absolute opposite now. Like, we want the lore.
We need the backstory.
Yeah. If a musician releases an album or a director makes an indie film, we want the press tour to tell us all about their childhood trauma, their recent divorce, or, the very specific panic attack that inspired track 4. We treat art as a diary.
A window into the creator's soul.
Exactly. But Wilde is telling us to slam that window shut. Keep your personal life out of it.
Because for Wilde, the moment the artist's personal baggage becomes the focal point, the art ceases to be purely beautiful. It just becomes biographical data.
Right.
He's arguing that the highest achievement of an artist is to vanish entirely behind the work. The artist shouldn't matter at all.
But wait, if the artist is supposed to be completely hidden, Wilde leaves a massive vacuum. I mean, someone has to bring the interpretation.
Yeah, and that brings us to his definition of the critic. So Wilde writes, the critic is he who can translate into another manner or a new material his impression of beautiful things.
Yeah.
And then he drops this absolute revelation. He says, the highest as the lowest form of criticism is a mode of autobiography.
Wow. Which, totally reframes how we look at something as mundane as online reviews.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about reading a massive multi-paragraph rant on Yelp or Letterboxd. You go in expecting an objective breakdown of a restaurant service or a movie's cinematography, right?
Yeah, a practical review.
But then, halfway through, the reviewer is trauma dumping about their recent bad breakup or some deeply specific childhood grievance. Like, they're projecting their entire psychological state onto a 2-star review of a romantic comedy.
And we usually dismiss those as terrible reviews. We say, the reviewer failed to be objective.
Right, they got too personal.
But Wilde argues that pure objectivity in criticism is a total myth. The reviewer isn't failing. They are executing the exact function of a critic.
Wait, really? So that's the point?
That is the point. The art acts as a psychological mirror, but not for the person who made it. It's a mirror for the person looking at it. When you criticize a work, you aren't really dissecting the work itself. You are translating your own internal impressions.
So the artist remains completely concealed, while the critic exposes their entire inner world.
Precisely.
Well, if the critic is essentially projecting their own autobiography onto the canvas, it makes me wonder, how we handle the heavy stuff, like morality.
Yeah, the morality
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, because we constantly judge books on whether the author has a good moral compass or if the characters set a positive example for society. But if the author is entirely concealed, whose morals are we even judging?
Wilde addresses this head-on, actually, and it is arguably the most controversial point in the entire preface. He just strips morality out of the equation entirely.
Really, just gets rid of it.
Yep. He writes, "There is no such thing as a moral or an immoral book. Books are well written or badly written. That is all."
Okay, hold on. I have to fight back on this on behalf of anyone listening, because that sounds like a massive, convenient evasion of responsibility.
It does sound like that, yeah.
If an author writes a 500-page manifesto glorifying a serial killer or advocating for a horrific ideology, you can't just throw up your hands and say, well, the sentence structure was lovely, so it's a good book.
Right.
How can Wilde claim that an artist has, like he says, no ethical sympathies?
It absolutely feels like a cop-out to our modern sensibilities, for sure, because we view art as having a serious social responsibility. But look at the mechanics of Wilde's argument. He fundamentally separates human morality from artistic morality.
Okay, how so?
Well, he writes, "The moral life of man forms part of the subject matter of the artist, but the morality of art consists in the perfect use of an imperfect medium."
So he's saying human morals are just the subject matter, but subject matter isn't the same as an endorsement.
Precisely. They're just raw materials. Think of a sculptor. The sculptor needs clay. To an artist, human morality, our crimes, our virtues, our charities, our murders, they're simply the clay.
Right.
Wilde explicitly states, vice and virtue are to the artist materials for an art.
But clay is completely neutral. A murder isn't neutral. Like, a terrible crime carries immense real-world weight.
To society, yes. But to the artist, while in the act of creating art, they must treat it as neutral. It's just a color on the palette.
Okay, I see.
If a painter uses a massive amount of crimson paint to depict a gruesome battlefield, we don't accuse the painter of being inherently violent or advocating for bloodshed.
No, we don't.
The crimson paint is just an instrument. Wilde applies that exact same logic to human behavior in literature. Vice and virtue are just narrative crimson paint.
Ah, okay. The distinction is crystallizing for me now. The artist isn't trying to prove that the murder was good or bad. They're just using the murder to sculpt a compelling scene.
Exactly. In fact, Wilde says no artist desires to prove anything. He views an author stepping out from behind the curtain to wink at the audience and deliver a moral lecture as a profound failure.
Yeah, he calls it an unpardonable mannerism of style, doesn't he?
He does. The moment you let your ethical sympathy drive the narrative, you stop making art and you start making propaganda. You've corrupted the pure aesthetic of the work with a sermon.
So the only morality that matters in art is the execution. Did you use the medium perfectly? Is it beautiful?
Right. Everything else is outside the realm of artistic judgment.
Okay, but if art isn't pushing a moral agenda, and its only real goal is to be a beautifully executed surface, why does society lose its mind over it?
That is the big question.
We see this constantly. Historical book bans, public outrage over controversial paintings, congressional hearings over song lyrics. If art is just neutral clay, why the absolute tantrums?
Wilde explains this through a really brilliant metaphor involving Shakespeare's monstrous character, Caliban.
Oh, from The Tempest?
Exactly. The metaphor is incredibly precise. He writes, "The 19th century dislike of realism is the rage of Caliban seeing his own face in a glass."
Okay.
And then he immediately follows it with, "The 19th century dislike of romanticism is the rage of Caliban not seeing his own face in a glass."
Let's unpack the psychology of that, because Caliban here clearly represents the ugly, unrefined base side of the public, like the 19th century society that fancied itself so polite and proper, and the glass is the mirror of art.
Spot on. The public approaches art expecting to be flattered. So when the artistic movement is realism, when the art shows life exactly as it is, with all the gritty, hypocritical, unpleasant details, it acts as a direct mirror.
And they hate what they see.
Yes, society looks into that glass, sees its own deep flaws staring back, and erupts into rage. They attack the art because they are completely repulsed by their own reflection.
It's the equivalent of accidentally opening the front-facing camera on your phone with 0 filters applied.
That is a perfect analogy.
You get furious at the camera for showing you your own tired, unvarnished face. But the paradox here is the second half. You'd assume that if society hates the unfiltered truth of realism, they must absolutely love romanticism, right?
Give them fantasy, escapism, idealized beauty.
Exactly. But Wilde says they hate that too.
Yeah, the rage of Caliban not seeing his own face in a glass. When the art is romantic and elevates itself far above the gritty reality of the public, society still throws a tantrum.
Why? Because they're ignored.
Exactly. The psychology here is pure ego. The public looks into the mirror of art and it doesn't see itself reflected back. It realizes the art doesn't care about it. It isn't the main character anymore.
It's like strolling social media and seeing an incredible, highly curated luxury vacation that you weren't invited to and, could never afford.
Right.
You resent the fantasy because it excludes you. It's a complete lose-lose situation for the artist. If you show society the truth, they hate you because the truth is ugly. If you show them a beautiful fantasy, they hate you because you bruise their ego by ignoring them.
Which perfectly proves Wilde's underlying thesis. The public's outrage has absolutely nothing to do with the art itself. The outrage is entirely a symptom of the public's own vanity and insecurity.
The art is merely the catalyst.
Exactly.
Knowing that the public's reaction is just a projection of their own ego, Wilde transitions into issuing a very stark warning about how we, individually, choose to engage with art.
Yes, the peril.
Right. He states, all art is at once surface and symbol. And then the warning, those who go beneath the surface do so at their peril. Those who read the symbol do so at their peril.
He uses the word peril very deliberately there. It implies a genuine hazard to the soul of the spectator.
Oh.
Wilde says it is the spectator and not life that art really mirrors. The danger lies in what you might uncover about yourself when you insist on digging into a piece of art to find its true meaning.
I think the best way to visualize this peril is to think about standing on the edge of a pristine, incredibly deep lake.
Okay, I like this.
You look down at the surface of the water, and it perfectly reflects the sky, the clouds, the surrounding trees. It's stunning just as the surface.
Right, it's beautiful.
But let's say you aren't satisfied with simply admiring the reflection. You insist on diving down, swimming to the very bottom, and digging up the mud and the decaying weeds to find some profound hidden secret buried in the dark.
And what happens? You completely destroy the serene reflection and you muddy the waters entirely.
Right. And if you find something ugly or offensive down there in the mud, you can't blame the lake. You brought that ugliness with you.
You did.
You went hunting for corruption, which means the corruption was already in your own mind.
That's a great way to put it. And Wilde doesn't mince words on this point. He writes, "Those who find ugly meanings in beautiful things are corrupt without being charming." This is a fault.
Ouch.
Yeah. If you look at a majestic painting or read a beautifully crafted poem, and your immediate instinct is to extract a dark, cynical, or immoral meaning from it, well, the art isn't corrupted. You are. The art just exposed you.
Wow. On the flip side, though, he does offer a kind of salvation for those who choose a different approach. He says, those who find beautiful meanings in beautiful things are the cultivated. For these, there is hope.
Yes, they don't dig up the mud. They are the elect to whom beautiful things mean only beauty.
This framework just beautifully neutralizes the chaos of cultural criticism. We often think that if critics are arguing fiercely over what a movie or a book means, the art must be confusing or flawed.
Right, we blame the art.
But Wilde says diversity of opinion about a work of art shows that the work is new, complex, and vital. When critics disagree, they're just revealing their own differing internal landscapes.
Well, when critics disagree, the artist is in accord with himself.
I absolutely love that imagery. The artist is just sitting quietly in a corner, perfectly at peace, having delivered the object of beauty. The art itself is motionless. Meanwhile, the spectators are in the center of the room, wildly flailing around, arguing, and entirely exposing their own internal corruption or cultivation.
Which leads us directly to the grand finale of the preface, the ultimate claim that ties this entire philosophy together.
Okay, let's trace the logic we've gathered so far. If art shouldn't teach us moral lessons, and we shouldn't treat it as the artist's diary, and we shouldn't dig into it for hidden symbols, because it merely serves to mirror our own souls.
Yep, those are the rules.
What is the actual point of it? What purpose does art serve in society?
Well, Wilde sets up his final mic drop with a comparison about utility. He writes, "We can forgive a man for making a useful thing as long as he does not admire it.
Okay.
The only excuse for making a useless thing is that one admires it intensely." And then the final sentence of the text, "All art is a quite useless.
We live in a society where utility is quite literally everything.
Everything.
We are obsessed with the hustle, we monetize our hobbies, we demand to know the return on investment for a college degree or a new skill. If you call someone's job or their passion useless, it is the ultimate insult.
Oh, yeah, it's brutal.
So for one of the greatest literary minds in history to look at his own life's work and say, yep, all of this is quite useless, how do we interpret that as anything other than a cynical joke?
It sounds cynical, sure, until you realize that in Wilde's philosophy, useless is the highest possible compliment.
Really, the highest compliment.
Think about what a useful object actually is. A hammer is useful. A spreadsheet is useful. An umbrella is useful. They're tools designed to achieve a specific end. They are subservient to a task. Once you drive the nail into the wood, the hammer's purpose is fulfilled, and you put it away in a dark toolbox.
You definitely don't frame the hammer, put it on a pedestal in your living room, and stare at it for hours.
Exactly. You forgive the person who made the hammer as long as they don't sit around intensely admiring their own hammer.
I see. So by declaring that art is useless, Wilde is liberating it.
He is. He's freeing art from the heavy, tedious burden of having to do a job. It doesn't have to fix the economy. It doesn't have to correct society's moral failings. It doesn't have to serve as a political pamphlet or an educational textbook.
The moment you force art to be useful, you strip it of its magic and turn it into a hammer.
That's beautifully said. The only excuse for making a useless thing, a breathtaking painting, a symphony, a beautifully written Gothic novel, is that one admires it intensely.
Its uselessness is what makes it sacred.
Yeah.
It exists solely to be beautiful, and it justifies its own existence simply by being there to be admired.
It's a radical declaration of independence. Art doesn't answer to the Victorian moralists. It doesn't answer to the modern utilitarians obsessed with productivity, and it certainly doesn't answer to the rage of Caliban.
It simply exists, beautiful and silent.
Yeah.
It fundamentally reshapes the entire experience of consuming culture. So to wrap up our journey through this incredible manifesto, we've explored how Wilde demands the artist be entirely concealed.
We have.
We've seen how human morals and terrible vices are nothing more than colored paint on a narrative palette. We've unpacked how art acts as a perilous mirror that forces society to confront its own ego and vanity.
Right.
And ultimately, we see how art earns its supreme value by rejecting utility and being gloriously, intensely useless.
It forces you to completely reevaluate your own reactions to things. And, if we take Wilde's premise to its absolute logical extreme, that art's highest calling is to conceal the creator completely and act solely as a mirror for the spectator, it raises a fascinating, almost science fiction question for our current era.
Oh, I like where this is going. What happens when we remove the human artist entirely?
Exactly. Think about generative AI.
Wow.
A purely algorithmic creation. It has no childhood trauma, no ethical sympathies, no biographical diary to conceal. It is the ultimate blank slate.
That's so true.
If an AI generates a completely useless, stunningly beautiful image or poem, and it provokes a profound emotional reaction in your soul, is that actually the realization of Wilde's ultimate aesthetic ideal?
A perfect mirror with no artist behind it at all.
Just something for you to think about the next time a piece of art moves you.
You walk into the gallery to judge the paintings, but the paintings end up judging you, even the ones made by machines. Such a brilliant perspective. Thanks for exploring this masterpiece with us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.